Hi, welcome back everyone. Now today we're going to talk about improvising over our chords, so we can do some solos on the track. Now then, might be a bit scary improvising, might not be, might be fun. Well, it's definitely going to be fun, that's for sure. I'm going to give you two ways on getting through the solo, and today we're going to talk about just the notes that you can play. We're not going to talk about rhythms or form or style or anything like that. We're just going to talk about the actual pitches. So I'm going to give you an easy route and a tricky route. So first of all, the easy route. Now then, we're going to play a scale called a pentatonic scale. Now a pentatonic scale has, guess what, 5 notes in it. Fantastic. And here they are. That's the first note. Second. Third. Fourth. And fifth. Now we can use our new skills. So if you rewind the video, you can listen to those pitches again, and you can find them on your instrument. So concert pitch, I'll just tell you, it's A, C, D, E, and G. So all white notes on the piano, which is good. For us on the alto sax, it's a bit trickier. I'll maybe write the transpositions at the end on a screen so you can see them at the end. So that's called a pentatonic. Now then, the great thing about a pentatonic is you can use that pentatonic scale over the whole tune. So that D7 and G7 repeated chord sequence which we've been playing, yep, you can use it over the whole thing whenever you like, no worries. Everything should sound good. So it's kind of like the way of getting through. So you don't really need to know where you are in the form whilst you're soloing if you use those notes. Okay, we call that harmonic generalisation. There you go, that sounds fancy. You can tell your music teacher that. So harmonic generalisation. Now there's another way of getting through it, which is a little bit more complicated. You might have done this one before. It's quite a common scale to learn at the start of your improvising career. So this one's called a blues scale. So you might have heard that kind of sound before. So I'll go through that scale step by step. So first note, D, F, G, G sharp, A, C, and a D again at the end. So D blues scale. Of course, if you play a different transposing instrument, the notes are going to be different, but it's still called a blues scale. So we're going to be using just one blues scale, concert D blues scale. So either of those work over the whole of the tune, and we can use those notes pretty freely. They'll pretty much sound good all of the time. Just a quick thing, when you're practicing this, I'm going to give you a track at the end of the video, so you can play the track and then rewind it and play again, and you can see which notes you prefer. So everyone's different. You might think that one note sounds particularly great and you might play that note quite a lot, and you might think that a couple sound a bit duff, so then you can just not play them. But if that's what you need to do in your practice. So a good thing to do is to get a piece of paper, write down the notes which you want to use. It can be any kind of paper, it doesn't have to be on music notation. Just jot the letters down, and then you'll know that those notes are always going to sound good. Okay, that's the end of stage 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sounding good? Okay, we're going to now talk about the more complicated way of doing things. Now remember, there were two chords in this tune. There were D7 and G7. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to assign a scale for each of those chords. Okay, so there's going to be a scale for the D7 chord and a scale for the G7 chord. Now, because the chords are the same type, so they're both seven chords, or dominant chords, we're going to use the same type of scale, which is great. So there's only one kind of scale to learn. We just need to do it in two different keys. Okay, so the scale we're going to use is what's known as a mixolydian scale. Mixolydian. Sometimes, because we're cool and jazzy, we call it mix instead, because mixolydian is such a long word to say. So yeah, there we go. So this is the first scale we're going to use is for the D7 chord, and guess what? It's D mix or D mixolydian, and this is what it sounds like. So there we go. It sounds a bit like D major, which is, but the seventh note is one step lower than it would normally be in a major scale. So in my case, I'm playing an A natural as a seventh note instead of an A sharp. So there we go. The seventh note is flatter than it would be if it's a major scale, but the rest of the scale exactly the same. So there we go. That one's D mix. And the same thing will apply for the second scale. So the second scale is G mix, or G mixolydian. It sounds the same, but just in a different key. So there we have it. So that's G major, but instead of an F sharp concert, we're going to use an F natural. There's G major. And there's G mixolydian. So I know it's a lot to take in a short time, so rewind the video and have a listen to these scales again and jot the notes down, so you've got an idea of which notes you're playing. Now then, obviously it's more complicated, because what we need to do now is follow the form of the tune and then remember which scale we're using for which chord. So you need to know where you are in the music. Unlike the other two chords, you can just kind of play and enjoy the fact that you feel free using those pentatonics and blues scales. With this, you need to know exactly where you are, because if you play a note from one scale in the other, in the wrong chord, it's going to sound a bit duff. And the jazz police may knock on your door and give you a fine. So, so we've got mixolydian scales. We've got D mixolydian for the D7, G mixolydian for the G7. Practice the scales, get the notes right, obviously, and then once you've practiced the scales, you can try practicing them in time. So you can put on your metronome, and you can try those two scales, one after each other. Just like that. Just so they feel more familiar. I guess on most instruments you have some sort of physicality to the instrument, of a violin or a cello or a wind instrument. Your fingers, in the end, they kind of feel a bit more comfortable. The more time you spend with that particular sound, your ears get more comfortable and your fingers become more comfortable. And eventually you stop really thinking about what you're doing as much. And as soon as you get into that sort of stage where you feel a bit freer with the notes and you don't have to worry which notes you're playing, suddenly you can become a little bit more creative, and you can think about other things in your life, like rhythm and style. So there we go, two scales. Practice them in time, and also in the end you can practice the scales with the backing track as well, so you can hear the two chords going on. There's going to be a D7, 2, 3, 4, G7, 2, 3, 4, and you can use the mixolydians for each of those scales as practice. Don't try anything too fancy, just stick to scales and become as comfortable as you can with your instrument and with those two sets of pitches. Marvellous. Here's the tracks. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, hope you enjoyed playing with the tracks. Obviously, you can play whatever you like with the tracks as well to practice your improvising. For this video, don't record a video yourself. Just do some practice. If you want to record a video and send some scales to me, I'm really happy to hear those too. But there's no need just yet because we've got the next video to watch, which is all going to be about a rhythm. So once we've done some rhythms and we've done some pitch, hopefully we'll have enough skills to record a solo. Excellent. I'll see you on the next video.